All right, folks, thanks for joining us again for the second part of emergency scene traffic control. So we left off the other day talking about the traffic control zone, the 5 components of the traffic control zone. So quickly, we'll just recap what we talked about. We spoke about the advanced warning area, as you see on the left there on your screen. Leads into the transition area where we have the tapered cones, and that's giving direction to the drivers that they're going to be changing the flow of traffic here. We have a buffer zone, which is just an empty space there for our safety. The work area where the actual incident has taken place, and the termination area where it tapers off again back into the normal traffic lane to indicate traffic is to resume its normal direction and flow. So just realize it may not be necessary or advisable in all situations to utilize all of the traffic control zone components, right? Experience and your evaluation of the conditions at each individual incident is going to dictate which components are necessary. If you're on a forestry road somewhere, you might need to do it a little differently than this. If it's a slow moving road, you might not need that big of a buffer area if you need a buffer area at all, because traffic doesn't travel too quickly in that area anyway. So again, use your experience, use your own judgment to evaluate what you need out of your traffic control zones. And remember, it is the incident commander who will dictate the final say on that. So we're going to talk about some key considerations for the traffic control, the temporary traffic control zone. So let's go through a few of these, some things we need to consider, right? So do the approaching drivers know that we're in the road? An advanced warning is absolutely critical to scene safety. On a 2-lane road, advanced warning may have to be provided both upstream and downstream of the incident. So do they know? Have we put out this advanced warning? Right? Do you think that it's giving them enough time to prepare? Can you be seen, right? Personnel, are we wearing our personal protective equipment? Are we managing our warning lights to make sure there's not too much of that light pollution going on? Is the scene lighting we're using appropriate? Is it pointed in the right directions? Do we have enough of it? Are we standing behind lights? We want to be careful of all of that, right? Just remember, just because you're in high beams or in the headlights of your vehicle does not mean you can be seen by oncoming motorists, especially if the lights are behind you and you're standing in front of them and someone's approaching you, that you get totally washed out. So make sure you can be seen. Is there a clear path around you and the scene, right? Is the path that the traffic is expected to take, is it clearly marked? Is it free of obstructions? Is it monitored by a safety officer, some other spotter? Is it going to be safe for both the drivers and the responders on the scene, right? Is there a safe work area? So that could include things like spills, debris, what's around the area. We need to control for that. We need to make sure we as the responders are safe. If there are sharps, are we wearing our full PPE when we're dealing with it? And I can tell you, in most cases, when we're dealing with an MVA, there will be sharps. I mean, there's going to be pieces of metal, glass will be broken, and we want to make sure that we're wearing appropriate PPE to keep ourselves safe as well. And is the transition back to normal conditions clear to drivers, right? Is that termination area clear to drivers? So is it a clear transition? Is it easy to understand? People understand where they're going to be returning to the normal lane of travel. Again, great, they've made it through the scene, everything's fantastic, but if we don't indicate when that scene is over, they could continue driving in an incorrect lane for a prolonged period of time and causing an accident further up the road. So each of these points are critical as the scene safety is being evaluated, right? We need to make sure that our size up and action plans are strong. We've taken all of these into considerations. These should be part of our size up and our action plans as we're determining how we're setting up our traffic zone. So here we have a little bit of an idea of some spacing and distance requirements, depending on how far you're, for the distance between the cones. So whenever reasonably possible, spacing and distance requirements need to be followed, right? Basically, so why is you can see here that the distances are all listed in maximums, all right? So that's the most. It could be, they can be closer together. That's not wrong. If you have enough cones and you have enough, to set it up, having more there does not, it does not hurt. It actually helps the scene, right? So the idea being that, if we can keep the cones tighter together, vehicles can't fit in them. People don't start thinking that this is a new path that they have to follow, right? And by keeping them at these maximum distances, we should also prevent that from happening. So if you look at the taper lengths here, you can see there's a difference between the taper length when there's department personnel directing traffic, and a different taper length when it's being self-regulated, right? So you can see that if there's somebody directing traffic, the taper length can be much shorter than if it's self-regulating traffic, right? And again, that's basically because of the effectiveness of that of personnel. Having somebody there directing traffic makes it, it gives motorists a lot more idea of what they need to be doing. You're able to point the directions they're supposed to be going, gives them adequate time if we've got a nice advanced warning area. But we need to have a lot more of a taper area because it has to be much more gradual, so that drivers almost just start gradually going over, and it's not such an abrupt turn, right? We're not making them stop or have our slow signs out. So we want to make sure that they see it and they're able to respond. Right. So just remember that distances need to be increased with the speed, depending on the speed and driving conditions, and that these are minimum standards, right? So if we have snow, you're going to want to increase all of the distances here, right? Distances between cones. And you need to understand how to read this chart. Typically what I'd want to do now is have a bit of a group discussion about it, but realize this is in your manuals as well, this chart. So, pay attention to it, take a look at it, understand, and it's all measured in meters, about what our maximums are and when they come into play. All right. All right, so directing traffic. In some circumstances, it might be necessary to temporarily stop and alternate traffic flow. That's typically the case when we have a one-lane highway and we need to close a lane, right? Or a two-way roadway. Sometimes when we have operations that require, we need to completely stop the traffic because we only have one lane traveling in each direction. So in cases like that, where we are going to be, doing those kind of stop, start, alternating traffic, we're definitely going to need to have traffic control personnel. They must be appointed to control the flow of traffic around the traffic control zone. The personnel providing traffic control are responsible for the safety of all of the motorists. So this is a big one, all right? All the pedestrians, all responders, all equipment, everybody there. If you're given the task of directing traffic, you need to be aware you're doing one of the most dangerous jobs on that scene, and you're one of the most important jobs because you're keeping everybody else at that scene safe. And you need to be vocal. If you see something that doesn't look right, you need to be able to say it. And you need to be able to say it loud and get people's attention. So traffic control personnel have to be able to clearly and safely communicate or signal their instructions to motorists and other personnel. The signals need to be able to provide a clear message and not cause any kind of confusion. All right, so we need to be on the same page. We need to be using signals that everybody understands, and not, we don't start doing, what are we bunting? We make sure everybody knows the signals, and we'll be talking a little bit more about those as we go on as well. So, so these are some of the objectives here that we need to try to hit as traffic personnel, right? So we need to understand how to safely position ourselves to reduce the risk of being injured while we're directing traffic on the roadway. The signals that we're using must be used when more than one person is directing traffic at a time. This avoids confusion. So when we're using, we always use signals when we have more than one person directing traffic. The safe ways to direct traffic that will reduce the chance of being injured or causing confusion and possibly accidents. All right, so there are safe ways of doing it and there are unsafe ways of doing it. We've talked about not stepping out onto roadways in front of traffic. That's very important. Even if you're the person with the stop sign, we don't step out in front, right? We need to know how to effectively manage that traffic and point them in the direction we want them to go without putting ourselves in any extra danger. right? So we have preventing violence on here. You know, road rage is actually very common, and very common when you're directing traffic. You'll see people in very foul moods. It's important to understand how to, you know, remove yourself from that situation, and to understand that it's not, you know, it's not your place to try and get into it with them. You're doing a job, and you know, don't encourage them. Don't feed into it. Don't try to fight back. Just try to, you know, as much as you can, bring the temperature down, you know, remove yourself from the situation, and if necessary, find a law enforcement officer to assist you in the situation. And then we have recording and reporting of incidents. So it's important that, you know, if there are situations of road rage, there are situations of dangerous driving, things that you come in contact with, it will be important for you to keep a record of that event. That record could come back in the event that the person that was, you know, doing that behavior is charged, and perhaps it could go to court. And there have been situations where that happens. You know, I told you the story about, you know, the guy who came through our emergency scene and ended up, you know, crashing into an ambulance, our rescue, and rolling down a 30-foot embankment. You know, they eventually did go to court, and obviously that was a pretty extreme example. And I did have to end up going to court with basically there on behalf of the prosecution. And you know, it ended up in that situation. The person wanted to fight it. They tried, you know, they gave him an option of pleading one of his charges down. He ended up saying, no, he's going to fight it because he's a commercial driver. So I actually had to give testimony. And I can tell you that my notes, I was allowed to read from my notes, you know, in that situation, because I had taken them right after the event. Basically, I was asked by the judge, you know, when did you put these notes to paper? And I said, as soon as I got back to the fire hall, after the call was done. And so she allowed me to reuse my notes to explain the situation. And again, that helped and went a long way to convicting the driver in that case. And it also goes a long way in some cases of clearing us of negligence if, you know, if there is a situation where somebody decides to challenge us and the work that we did out there that day. All right, so motorists have to be able to see and understand the directions of the person directing traffic. The most important thing to consider when directing traffic is that you're in a position that provides for your maximum visibility and a safe escape route, all right? That's very important. You need to be visible, and you need to have and identify an escape route that you can take if you find that semi barreling down the highway at you and jackknifing and going sideways. How am I going to get myself out of a dangerous situation? All right. The person directing traffic has to be able to see the crew and any other person directing traffic, especially if we're not using radios. There are going to be times when you may be located around a corner from your partner, and radios are going to be required. If you are in line of sight, try to make yourself in a position where that you can see each other. All right. And stressing the issue, you know, make sure you have that escape route. You know, and I've explained to you a good example there where having those escape routes, like we got to scene and we all, you know, it was an open highway. There were no Jersey barriers, and it made it easy. We were able to all scurry off into the woods or around or away from where we needed to go. One person actually from our fire department used the apparatus and went right behind the apparatus, knowing that they had driven it there and they had set the wheel chocks and positioned the wheels appropriately. So, and even then, you know, that got knocked back a couple of feet, but had it gotten knocked back, you know, 6-7 feet, that person could have been injured as well. Fortunately, they made it, and they had done the right thing when they positioned their apparatus. Using a relay might be an option in some case. That's a third person who's used in the middle to help relay messages when radios aren't available. So if you ever have communications issues, using a relay is a way we can get around that, right? Communicating to one person using hand signals or using voice, and having them transmit that, broadcast that message to their partner down the road. And never forget, standing in front of those headlights, that creates a blackout. All right, they cannot see you. So here we want to keep a safe distance from the first vehicle in line and the person directing traffic. So they're not going to be hit if the vehicle that's stopped there gets rear-ended and ends up rolling forward. All right, keep that space. All right, we want to stand outside of the lane carrying traffic when we want to stand outside of that lane that's carrying traffic, right? We don't want to be in the lane that's carrying traffic. That's going to increase our risk of getting hit. And if we're out of the lane, we're not going to have cars swerving into oncoming lanes to try and get around us, right? So we want to have our toes to the center line and our heels to the ditch. All right, this will keep the person from turning your back on traffic. Try to remember that, right? We never want to turn our back on traffic. Let's keep our toes to the center line and our heels to the ditch. All right, so remember, we want to move into the lane where traffic is not moving and send the motorist through. So our guy's going to move up, motorists can go through. Get their heels to the ditch, toes to the center line, right? So signaling and communication, these signals and communication must be used when people are directing traffic as a team. So anytime we have two or more, some kind of signals and communication system needs to be used. One designated person is going to controls the flow of traffic using the required signals. And that's going to avoid confusion and mistakes that could lead to incidents or injury. So this person is going to control the obstructed lane and operates from a position of clearest visibility. All right. All right, so we're going to go through a couple of different kinds of trig signals. So there are 4 standard WorkSafe BC arm signals. All right. How do we allow traffic to proceed from the other direction? How do we halt traffic from the other direction? There's an emergency vehicle approaching and an emergency stop and hold. So understanding those 4 hand signals are important to doing the job. All right, and as it says at the bottom there, two-way radios are the preferred method of communication. So standard arm signals, first one, allowing traffic to proceed. All right, this is very straightforward. Your arm up to the side with a fist. You're going to basically move up and down to communicate, to allow traffic to flow from the other direction. All right, so you're just basically going like that. That's to allow traffic to flow from the other direction. So the emergency stop and hold, that's the single fist in the air, straight up. All right. Doing that will tell you that we immediately need to stop or hold. And that's going to be used with emergency vehicles, or it's going to be used to tell you, direct the traffic control person that we need you to immediately stop your lane of traffic. All right. And then you can see here where we have the emergency vehicle approaching. And that's just the situation. You have your hands outstretched, you put them over top of, and you cross them over top of your head for that signal. All right. So again, that stop hold can be used to inform personnel directing traffic to hold all vehicles for emergencies, is for emergency vehicles to get in, or to facilitate the movement of the apparatus within the emergency scene. So we want everyone to stop. Somebody's moving around, something's happening, and we just want a clear lane for a little bit. Maybe the ambulance is leaving scene with a patient, and we want to give them a clear lane. With the emergency vehicle approaching signal, obviously that's going to be used when emergency response vehicles are showing up. If police, fire, ambulance, any of them show up, let others know. That means you are going to get traffic. Even if you're holding traffic, they're likely going to bypass that line and come right in. All right, there's a couple of key considerations as well that we want to keep in mind while we're out there, right? We want to be courteous, right? And why is it important to be courteous, and assertive and confident and clear in our direction? We want to make sure that we want to have and gain and keep the respect of the motoring public while we're directing the traffic. All right, there's no reason if we start being jerks out there and we start telling people off and are in bad moods or just look scared, look like we don't know what we're doing, then people are going to catch on to that, and the respect for your authority and what you're doing there is going to be diminished, right? So things like yelling, swearing, hitting cars, I was taught a lot of really bad things back when. I'm not even going to tell you what they are, but when I was first taught how to do traffic, and a couple of those will not be, admitted today. So we don't want to be rude. We don't want to be aggressive. we're not cocky, right? Basically, all we're going to do by doing that is we're going to antagonize the traveling public. We're going to lead them to frustration, confusion, and that could lead to accidents, right? We need to stay alert, pay attention to traffic, the pedestrians, and the crew all the time, right? We want to remain alert. We don't want to be caught napping. We always need to keep our eye on the traffic. Dangerous things can happen when we're not paying attention, right? We want to also try to keep that eye contact with traffic, and that helps us to establish control. You have eyes, you have your eyes, right locked with theirs. You know that they're paying attention. You can have a little bit of safety knowing that they've heard you. They can do, they understand you're there directing them, and they're going to pay attention to your directions. You don't have eye contact, and you're looking around. You have a stop paddle. I mean, again, dangerous things happen there. Your traffic control paddle, it has to remain static, or your the traffic coming at you may ignore it, right? So you're not going to be there, spinning it around. It's like, it's slow. And then, you're walking and it kind of goes sideways, or, you're moving around and the slow is, maybe turned a little bit. Now, oh, I see the stop a little bit more than the slow. It leads to serious confusion, right? So we want to keep it static. We keep it where it is. When you're directing traffic, it is not the time to be wandering. You should be staying in one place, especially when you put your sign in a certain direction. And we never leave our paddle unattended. All right. I've seen this before where, they've decided, oh, we're just going to put a slow sign up or whatever, or stop and I'm going to put the paddle up on the back of the truck and let somebody, and it'll stay slow. First off, that's not going to work. If you try it with the stop, I can tell you it's dangerous. It's not, especially if you're expecting people to pay attention to it. You need to be in control of your paddle at all times in order to be the most effective. I see we have a question, Slade.
Yeah, just wondering, if you're directing traffic and you're doing the emergency vehicle approaching one, but you also have a paddle in your hand, what do you do with the paddle? Do you put your hands over the head with the paddle, or do you just put the paddle down to the side, or?
Well, typically you're going to want to do the stop first. And a lot of times, when we're doing traffic, if you have a buddy, let them do it for you. If you don't, then yes, you would have to do it over your head and keep the paddle in your hand and try not to, make sure that the proper side is facing at all times.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Right. Another thing to keep in mind, never want to abandon traffic, right? If we need to walk away or are finished with directing traffic, we need to stay put. Basically, we need to continue directing them. As soon as we, even if it's a slow day, we cannot walk away from our job, right? We always stay, if you're put in a position of directing traffic, you need to stay in your position, right? One thing you might find as you're out there as well is that the public might try to use you as a little bit of an information kiosk, right? They're going to try and get, what's going on? Give me some information, right? Simply tell them you're unable to help them at this time and ask them to keep moving, right? This is often, rubberneckers trying to stop and say, oh my God, what happened there? No, you got to keep going, right? Again, courteous, but very clear direction in those cases. If they're trying to chat you up about details of the scene and while they're at a stop, again, do not engage in that kind of talk. We don't try to talk about all the gory details of what we go out and what's going on in a scene. We don't want to talk about anything that could be misconstrued by others as saying somebody was responsible for the call. Talking can only get us in trouble and can only get other, make a situation worse. If they don't know what's going on, it's not going to hurt them. They can read about it in the paper the next day if it's newsworthy. So again, we've talked about this before, but we can't stress enough. We never walk in front of a vehicle with a slow sign or a stop sign displayed, and we don't. We're not directing traffic into any lane until it has been totally cleared. So if traffic is still coming from the other direction, we aren't going to be directing them into that thinking that they're going to, oh, okay, they'll wait for that last car to come. Wait for that last car to come before giving them the direction and switching your paddle. All right. So the steps for slowing traffic we've got on the screen here. One is to extend that traffic control paddle out towards the lane of the oncoming traffic, and wave traffic forward with the other hand to prevent it from coming to a full stop. We want to make sure, so again, we're putting the slow, if we've got the slow, and then we're going to wave them through, always making eye contact, right? Never ever using our body to slow traffic down, right? So put it out, maintain that eye contact with the driver, and extend it far from your body, and do the wave through. All right, so stopping traffic safely. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the steps for stopping traffic safely. All right. So we're gonna wanna, when we're stopping traffic, we wanna stand on the shoulder of the road, holding the paddle in our right hand, and wait until that first car stops. Then move to the center line, and we're gonna hold up our left hand. All right, so we have it out, right, on the right hand side, in our right hand. Wait until the first car stops. We'll then move out into the center line with our paddle in our hand, stop with the stop, and use our left hand. And hold the, we're going to switch and hold the paddle in our left hand from there. And we always want to stand where we can see them and they can see us. All right. So we use the paddle to show the correct, so I'd like, if I could, and I had a paddle on me, I'd show you the correct procedure, but basically that's it. It is using your hand, basically start with the right hand, extend it. As soon as that car has come to a stop, move out to the center line, switch hands, put the stop out, and you can also have your hand up to say stop to the vehicles as they come up. All right. Slow traffic, we want to make sure that the traffic is slowing down before it stops, right? We don't suddenly change signals. So if they're coming at us pretty fast, and they're pretty close to us, just switching the stop signal and having them have to slam on the brakes isn't the way we want it to be, right? We want to try and get them, make sure they see that stop paddle and try to get them slowing down well before it. All right. We never stop cars suddenly and without warning. Never happens, right? We don't want to twist the paddle. We don't want to wave it around unnecessarily, right? We want to use it in a static manner if we can, right? And I've seen people, kind of do the wave at the car way off in the distance. If you stand there straight and hold your paddle properly, they will see you and they will slow down if you've given them enough advanced warning. All right, hold that paddle directly facing traffic. Always hold it upright. And I don't know why, it doesn't go without saying, but never hit a car with your paddle. All right. It's not what it's for. It's not a weapon. We don't use it like that. All right. So directing traffic safely, we never assume a motorist is going to do the right thing. All right. We need to provide the right guidance to them, direct them into the lane that we want them to use. All right. So basically, we want to clearly guide and direct the motorists in the direction we want them to travel. We try to keep traffic moving as smoothly as possibly and never assume that they know what they should be doing. All right, because you'll find that they don't, and there are a lot of bad drivers out there. Something to keep in mind, and I'll try to say this with a straight face as I'm talking about it, but the police authority may, at their discretion, override the firefighter of their traffic control duties. Should this occur, you are to step down without question. This doesn't happen, but if it ever does happen, and a police officer tells you, they want to take over traffic, absolutely let them, and please record it and send me pictures. I could use it for this course, but I have yet to see a police officer direct traffic at an emergency scene. It's not a very common thing, and we often get tasked with it. So keep in mind, this doesn't mean that we're to abandon traffic as soon as the police arrive, right? So they show up, we don't just say, oh, good, the cops are here, they're going to do traffic, because like I said, very unlikely that that's going to happen. You can talk with the police, determine what your needs are for traffic control and whether we need to remain at the scene. But I can tell you, yeah, they're going to say, yeah, why don't you just stick around here? Maybe I'll do some important police business and you can direct traffic. So yeah.
Sean, a question.
Yeah.
Previous slide, you had rotate arm.
So, what's that?
So rotate your arm.
Rotate your arm.
What's
Right. That's when you're getting, like, to get them slowly moving through the scene, right? So you're doing the, you're basically doing,
you're waving them through.
yeah, waving them through, exactly.
Joe?
You're welcome. So whenever possible, we want to transfer the traffic, if the responsibility for traffic control to the RCMP or a certified traffic control agency. Yeah, I encourage every incident commander out there to try to transfer responsibility to traffic to the RCMP. Again, I want stories afterwards. What's most likely to happen is, trying to get in a certified traffic control agency, and that's often done through MOTI, through their contractor AIM, having Surrey Dispatch contact them and let them know of our need and try to get them out there as quickly as possible. We talked a bit about violence, talk a little bit more, because the risk of violence in the workplace, and this is our workplace. We're standing on the side of a road, we're directing traffic, that's our workplace. And violence in the workplace is very high for people who direct traffic. And you've likely seen videos of road rage in, in construction zones and things like that. It happens a lot. Being assertive and confident and clear is going to help us prevent the confusion, hopefully help prevent them from getting into a road rage situation, right? So, we just want to remain calm, right? Never, ever retaliate, and be professional. Remember, we are professional. We're taught the same stuff that you learn in any big city. We are very good at what we do, and we can show that. But we don't, we're not going to sink to their level. We're not going to retaliate. We're always going to keep our cool. So again, you're gonna encounter angry and aggressive motorists. We're gonna remain calm, in control, firm but respectful, right? Never engage in those verbal wars with a motorist. It'll only escalate, right? We can try to de-escalate the situation, but really just remove yourself from the situation. Call for assistance. If you need help, you came out with a team. There are others there. We are all on the same team, and we are there to help each other. Right? If if you're confronted by somebody who's getting aggressive, notify the incident commander, notify anyone who's close by, right? We can apologize for the inconvenience, be nice, be courteous, right? And just try to keep that traffic moving. The sooner you can get that angry person out of the way, the sooner you don't have to deal with it anymore. So if we can get the traffic moving, get them out of there, right? So again, we want to record and report any incidents. So any incidents with dangerous drivers or confrontations at the emergency scene, we want to record and report those, right? We want to get as much information as we possibly can, right? According to the Motor Vehicle Act, drivers have to obey the directions of a person directing traffic, and that's us. They need to do that. So we need to keep record of any of these confrontations, because it's likely that we can, that charges can be laid and that we can prevent this from happening, hopefully by this person to anyone else in the future. And it sets the standard for other people. If they know that, people are getting charged and convicted of this, it hopefully changes their mind on whether or not they're going to be in a nasty situation with you. So we want to keep the license plate number, right? That's absolutely key. The province, where is it from, right? A lot of times they're going to be, British Columbia, but you'll get the odd red learner plate as well as other out of province plates. Some descriptions like make and the color of the vehicle, model, a description of the driver, what was the time of day when it happened, and names or telephone numbers of any witnesses as well would be important. Often, hopefully your witnesses are within the fire department and are right there to help corroborate your story, and that goes a long way. So like I mentioned, we want to report it to the incident commander or local or local police. So again, near misses, actual incidents, accidents, and repeat offenders, we always want to report that, right?
Ron here. Got a question.
Yeah, Ron. Go ahead, Ron.
In the last slide, you said warn is with erratic drivers. If we have an air horn, are we allowed to use it to warn everybody on the scene?
Of an erratic, careless driver?
Yeah, just freelances. He's just And that's happened to me before. They just blow the stop sign and they're just driving straight through and there's people on the road.
Okay, if that's something you guys have chosen to do, it's not a standard operating guideline. It is not something that we typically teach in this course. If you kind of use it as, similar to what, it sounds like you're using it similar to what we use for, building evac, at a structure fire, a building evacuation or a cut and run. You're going to have to let me think about that a little bit, because there are some concerns about that as well, right, Ron, where, like the loud noises can lead to another distraction of the drivers, right? But, it kind of comes down to how much time do you have to do that warning. But it's not the worst idea. And honestly, I can't say, thinking about it more, that there's anything that would really stop you from doing that. So if that's something that your department's choosing to do, go for it.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, I had to talk myself into it first, but that was a good question and a new one for me. Thanks. So again, it's important that the department personnel at the scene warn others when that erratic driver enters the area, right? And we want to share any situations like this. So share near miss incidents with the regional chiefs, that's myself, your fire chiefs, and your training officers. Let them know so that, I can take this into the course and we can teach others. I think there was a hand up as well, Orser, if you had a question.
No, it's just an answer to that other guy's response. You would stop the guy, and if an RCMP member is in the area or on scene, you would get him to talk to him and pull over and deal with that out of your traffic scene.
Yeah, I think the situation Ron was referring to was more somebody coming and not necessarily slowing down to warn everybody. And, that's how I took it.
Oh, okay.
And that's, that was the exact situation that I ran into. And if I had an air horn in my pocket to notify everyone and everyone knew what that air horn meant, it might have been good. As it stood, I had to scream, and I think everybody heard me. I don't know that I've ever screamed that loud in my life, trying to get people to move out of the way. So yeah, Ron, the air horn, good idea. All right. So far, we've spent a day and almost a half of our training today, talking about the preparation and pre-planning for traffic response. And now we're going to talk about the response itself. So the response really begins, it begins at the hall, pager tones and getting out there. We're gathering as much information as we can. We get into the truck, we start driving to the emergency scene. As we're getting there, we're paying attention to, and we're sizing up the situation as we get up there, right? So as we're approaching the scene, our lane selection is important, right? Often we're going to travel in the passing lane on a 2-lane highway. Allows us to get a little bit faster, allows drivers to pull over to the right-hand side, and allows us to pass them on the left-hand side, and gives us a little bit more room from the drivers pulling over on the right-hand side. At times we may end up having to straddle the lane strip. And sometimes we're going to want to do that to act as a buffer. Apparatus traveling, you should travel single file, right? We shouldn't be traveling side by side down the highway. And once we are approaching the scene, we want to make sure we're slowing down ahead of time. There's going to be people out of their vehicle. There's going to be other hazards around. There's going to be debris. There's going to be things. So we want to make sure we're slowing down, right? Arriving as soon as possible, it's desirable, but arriving safely is imperative. Again, nothing, we can't do any good if we become part of, involved in our own accident. Again, we don't use fire trucks to transport victims to emergency scenes. So again, we get there, we're on scene with the setup. The first apparatus on scene, responsibilities are going to be establishing a safe work area. We're going to want to protect responders and the work area, and we do that by blocking. And you can see the apparatus in the back there doing a blocking maneuver. And we want to start to deploy equipment. So remember, so again, personnel should maintain an awareness of the high risk of working in and around moving traffic, right? Whenever possible, we want to exit on the curb side or the non-traffic side of the vehicle. And we want to be wearing appropriate protective clothing, before we even get there. And Julia actually had a great saying about this. Julia, if you're on the call, can you remind me what that saying was? She's not there. I think I remember it now.
Hold on, she's here.
Here she
Make
is.
sure there's a vest on your chest before your feet hit the street.
There you go. Make sure there's a vest on your chest before your feet hit the street.
Try to sing it.
Julia texted that to me last week, and I thought that is fantastic. I'm totally going to embarrass her and call her out on this meeting, but on this call. But it's an excellent thing. Vest on your chest before your feet hit the street. We want to make sure we're in our protective clothing. We don't get out and then try to search around for our traffic vest if we can avoid it. All right. Again, the greatest risk to our responders occurs during that traffic control zone setup and takedown process. During our setup, all the warning devices need to be in position. They're not in position yet. Approaching motorists may not even be expecting to find an emergency scene and emergency services personnel walking around on the highway and might be shocked when they see their equipment on the road. Again, I think that's that happened to us, and on our in the call I'm talking about that the guy hit our trucks. He obviously came around the corner, and we hadn't had the chance to set up any advanced warning signal. Now, you'd think that 400 meters was enough sightline, but again, that's where we can't assume with the motorists, right? We never know what's going on there. So again, that check for hazards, 3 points of contact. We know how to get on and off an apparatus, but let's do it safely. We don't just hop from it, right? And make sure the door is closed. We leave the door open. There's a chance that door won't be there when we get back. So the temporary traffic control zone, remember, we want to position that apparatus so the pump panel is located on the opposite side of the vehicle from the oncoming traffic if we can. All right, and we're using the vehicle here, the apparatus, as blocking, right, or in what we call a fend off position. All right. This is so if we want, again, if we can protect that pump panel and have it on the far side away from traffic, let's do that. However, depending on how we position the vehicle, that might not necessarily be possible, and it's only really important if we're looking at something like a vehicle fire situation. All right. When we're doing blocking, we want to make sure we pull as far as possible onto the right or the left, depending on where the accident is. And then we're going to turn back sharply to position the apparatus basically at a 20 to 30 degree angle from the roadway. All right. This allows the approaching vehicles to have a bigger view of our apparatus as they're coming at it, and all the lights that are on it. It's going to give them much greater area to that of advanced warning. All right. And by positioning it this way, if you look at the way that the apparatus is positioned in the photo on this slide, basically it has a chance of deflecting any impact into the apparatus away from the incident scene, as opposed to traveling into the actual into the work zone of our accident scene. All right. So blocking, basically just positioning that emergency vehicle on an angle in lanes of traffic to create a physical barrier between the traffic and the work area, right? So how we block, is going to depend on the situation, right? All units should be parking at, at that, 30 to 45 degree angle, facing all the front wheels forward. And we want to set the parking brake and chock the wheels, all right? In the event of a collision, our vehicle will absorb most of the impact and be pushed away from the scene, and the colliding vehicle will likely glance off and deflect outwards and not into the scene. All right. So there are some. Terms as well to be aware of. Terms like upstream blocking, and that's protecting the work area from traffic approaching from the same direction that as the lane you're working in. Downstream blocking is protecting the work area from traffic approaching from the opposite direction, right? You might hear block to the left, that places the vehicle angled to the left, or block to the right, that means placing the vehicle angled off to the right. Something that's important as well is the establishment of command. And this is something that really needs to be done immediately upon the first arriving apparatus showing up at the scene. We teach in many other courses, the person in that in the passenger seat on the first responding apparatus, is the one who's going to establish command at that incident scene. All right. So we want to have command established. If somebody higher ranking shows up, it can be passed at a different, as soon as they show up. But we need somebody to be in command as we're doing our work on scene. All right. So we want to do that scene survey, big size up, what is going on, what are my hazards? So we're assessing the hazards. I'm going to determine, what do I need? Do I need more apparatus? Do I need more personnel? Am I going to need traffic control personnel, or am I going to need a hazmat crew? What do I need out here? And avoid the tunnel vision. If you are in that command position, you are not somebody who's going to be dealing specifically hands-on on the on the emergency situation, right? You're going to be somebody who needs to be able to stand back and take the big picture view and be able to keep into mind, you're not just dealing with an emergency scene here, you're dealing with the emergency scene traffic control people. You're keeping accountability for all the police that are coming, all the other emergency personnel, whether it's first responders or ambulance, keeping them safe. And you're keeping, and also you have to keep in mind the motorists on the roadway as well, and trying to keep them safe. So we don't want to get locked into any kind of operation that's going to take us away from that. So here we go with, in the traffic control zone setup, in the incident time frame. If we're looking at something like, a call that looks like it's going to be under a 30-minute call, we're still going to want to put up a blocking apparatus, right? We're going to have maybe an informal temporary traffic control zone, and we might not use too many markers and signs. As soon as we know that this is a call that's going to be over 30 minutes, that's when we're looking at using, not only the blocking apparatus, but having a formal temporary traffic control zone. And that's where we need to know we're putting out additional markers and signs. It's going to be the full meal deal and do a proper zone. The only situation you're going to come into in most cases that you're looking at and saying it's under 30 minutes is, the vehicle in the ditch situation. People didn't know, is there somebody trapped? Is there somebody who needs help? You get out there, you kind of position your apparatus for blocking, do your, have somebody start, with the paddle and slowing traffic down if you can. Take a quick look at it, back in the apparatus, back to the hall when you're, after you flagged off the vehicle and said it's been looked at, right? Anything beyond that, though, assume it's going to be over 30 minutes and start coming up with that plan for temporary traffic control. So the initial arriving emergency vehicles are likely going to want to start deploying cones at starting at the incident scene and work backwards towards the transition taper and the advanced warning areas. All right. The later arriving units might deploy additional channeling devices and start from the advanced warning area and work towards the incident. So if you guys can come up with a game plan, maybe you start setting it up and there's another truck on the way, you get them to stop somewhere where that you're going to be, you were somewhere that you want them to set up the advanced warning area, get them to set the sign up for that, and then get them to work their way back, starting at that transition area, set the cones up, and then meet you in the middle, right? So anytime you are setting these up, though, remember, we need to be wearing compliant, high visibility protective gear whenever we're working on the roadway, especially when we're placing markers. It's absolutely required. We always want to face the traffic, right? Pay attention to all those approaching vehicles, and when possible, have a properly marked emergency vehicle providing the blocking and to protect the responders on scene, right? Once we've got those channeling devices, the cones or whatever else we're using in place, we want to retreat to the protection of the incident workspace unless we're required to be flagging. All right. So once we've got it set up, it's time to go back to the safe area, to the buffer area, like beyond the buffer area into the work zone. That should be the safest zone in our temporary traffic control area. Okay. I'm going to go through a couple of different examples for some temporary traffic control that gets set up on highways. All right. So in this scenario, we've got, we're dealing with a highway, basically just a 2-lane highway, one in each direction, at speeds greater than 70 kilometers an hour. So a couple things to keep in mind, right? We want the distances from that, for that advanced warning area, a minimum, right, of 80 meters. right? If we need more space, we take more space. If there's a, if it ends up that 80 meters puts the sign right in a blind corner, we're not going to put it in that blind corner. We're going to take it further out past the corner where it can be seen. If it puts it on a section where it can't be seen because of a row, because of the grade of the hill, we want to bring it down that hill a little bit so it can be seen, right? So we want to increase the taper length for these high-speed roads to a minimum of 10 meters with a traffic control person present, or 75 meters if there isn't a traffic control person present. All right. So again, longer taper is needed on higher speeds. We want to increase the buffer length if the equipment will accommodate. All right. So again, higher speeds, more safety margin required, right? Longer taper area, longer advanced warning area, bigger buffer zone. Okay, why won't this move here? There we go. Okay, so remember, the department personnel must follow the traffic signal patterns when working in or near intersections, right? Only one person must be in charge of can be absolutely like at the end control of the traffic control, right? And intersections require special considerations. All right. So we need to work with the existing traffic lights, right? We also want to set up detours when necessary. You can see here that we have a lane that's blocked by the accident. So we've set up a detour, right? We've got some cones up and nobody can get that way. Having a detour sign, or maybe you're gonna have to put a traffic control person out there to help direct traffic where it needs to go. Consider in some cases you may need, we have a lane closure. So what we've done here is we've tapered the lane off. We've closed that one lane to give us a larger workspace, and we're directing the traffic around from that lane back into the lane that's open, right? So we set in place things like only right turns are allowed. So you can see here that that a left turn coming through this intersection would put them right in the middle of a zone. All right, so in this case, we're going to tell them you have to go right, and we're going to detour them around the zone so that they can get around safely. So again, we want to use signs on the busiest streets if we have a limited supply, and we do have a limited supply. Most of our departments likely will only have 1 or 2 of the emergency scene ahead signs. So you're going to have to choose, which is my busiest street? Where am I going to put these traffic control signs? You can see on my slide here, I've put them at every intersection, but that's not necessarily going to be possible, right? We want to use our cones are going to be our markers, and that's going to help. And we want to start them on the center lines because that helps draw the attention of the motorists a little bit earlier, all right? And remember, every setup's going to be different depending on the location, depending on what you're dealing with out there. It will be different, right? Think about putting that right turns only into place if you have to, and always work with the lights, never against the lights if you can avoid it. So if they're going green in a certain pattern and red in another pattern, try to keep with that order. It makes it easier. All you're doing then is really directing the traffic in which direction to go. As soon as you start trying to fight the traffic, if you have traffic lights, as soon as you start trying to fight that, it creates confusion in the motorist, and it can lead to problems. Now, most of us aren't going to have these issues. There are not a lot of intersections with lights on them in any of our fire protection areas, but it may happen, and it's part of the course. You need to know it. You can stop vehicles on green lights, but you really should never. But you should never send somebody through on a red light unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay, remember, we do using shoulders. It can be shoulders if they're adequate and if they're big enough and if they can accommodate traffic, they can be used to channel traffic around, right? You just start telling them they need to go around this way. Now we've got a couple of cars zooming by on our screen showing where they can basically, now our scene is safe. We've got our apparatus in a nice safe area, and the shoulders are being used now for the vehicles to travel on. So now we have a multi-lane response on this one, and you can see we do have traffic zipping by on the one lane, but we've shut traffic down in the other direction. What we have here is what's called a suicide lane, right? It's that left-hand turn lane that would typically be used by both directions, right? And that's why it's called a suicide lane. You can see there's a left turn, say a left turn indicator for each lane of traffic. So if you're traveling eastbound, westbound, doesn't matter. Both of you can go left. And that means cars can travel in opposite directions on the same lane, even under normal conditions. But using that kind of a turning lane to funnel traffic around is also a great idea if you have that option. So again, we just want to direct the traffic around the incident scene, use the suicide lane, close it off completely to the vehicles traveling from the other direction, right? So now you've got your Jeep, they're going to be fine, they're not going to collide, everyone's going to be great, right? Okay. So just to review, we talked about blocking using the apparatus, right? We talked about, upstream controlling the traffic coming at you. The use of our cones, using those cones and the traffic control devices properly. Flares is another option, or turbo flares is something that a lot of departments carry. And turbo flares are basically just electronic beacons that have little LED lights that go around. Make sure you have, any additional resources. What do you need? Get it out there as soon as you can. And just keep asking yourself, are we operating safely? Is there anything else that we can be doing to keep ourselves safe? Right? And never forget, if necessary to ensure your safety, roadway closure is an option, right? Don't let anybody tell you that you don't have the authority to close a roadway. And if they keep on giving you a hassle about it, like I said, you're redirecting traffic the other direction. All right. Remember though, if we're using the cones and flares do not provide any kind of force field. They are not some kind of magical protector device. Cars can get over them, right? They do tend to send a good message, but they are not going to prevent that car that's coming at you from getting to you. All right. Your apparatus is a visible force field. It is something that actually will prevent that vehicle from getting at you. Use it whenever you can. 100% would rather replace an engine that gets hit and wrecked than I would want to call a family and let them know why somebody's not coming home. All right. So just remember, when the traffic control measures cannot provide that safe work area, and you can't mitigate that any kind of unreasonable risk to our responders, we need to close that roadway down. All right, a couple of variations that we should consider: hills and curves, the configuration of the roads, speed and volume, environmental condition, and intersections. Anytime any of these are encountered, motorists need to be given some additional warning time, right? That there's an incident ahead. They need to know that it's coming, right? In most cases, we can give that additional warning time just by placing the advanced warning sign further upstream, give them more of an enhanced warning area, right? This increased distance gives them, the approaching motorists, more time to react properly, and it'll help guide them through our traffic control zone safely. All right. Now, we do have a couple of things here to go through that I want to show you. And just if you guys want to talk, have ideas on what's wrong with this picture, let's see how this goes. We've got 120 participants right now, so there should be somebody out there who can help me out with this. Maybe if you want to raise your hand, and if I see it, as soon as I see it, I can call on you. And if you see something in this picture that might not be right, bonus marks.
First of all, there's no blocking traffic.
There's no blocking. There's no blocker for traffic. Okay.
Yeah.
There is an apparatus. They do have a police car back there a little bit. You can kind of see, right?
Yeah, but he's not on his angle though.
That's right. That's right.
There's
Absolutely.
no cones out.
There's no cones out. Absolutely.
No safety vests either.
No safety vest. Absolutely.
I don't see any
Watching the
signs down
traffic.
road.
Who said that? I heard somebody say watching traffic. I see a lot of hands up now and people are just shouting. So you guys, you can put your hands down and we'll just get you to call out. But I heard somebody saying backs to traffic, and that is a great one, right? Whoever said that. Good job.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Way to go, Doug.
Yeah.
So they had their backs to traffic. I heard someone else talk about the fact that there were no cones, right? That's right.
Yeah,
We should have some. We need to have cones at that.
There's nobody directing traffic as well.
There's nobody directing traffic. Perfect. And the high vis and the PPE, right? We don't have the high vis clothing on. One guy's wearing some nice orange pants. Everyone else might as well be, wearing camouflage for all they've got.
Yeah, but the guys that has their pants that are orange are nowhere near where you can see them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Good job, everyone. We're going to go on to another picture. What do we got here? What does anybody see is wrong with this picture?
I see somebody in the line of traffic that does not have any reflective gear on or any signs.
You just did everything with that one, Keith. I think. Yeah, basically, yeah, we've got a guy wandering in traffic and nobody really is wearing the proper high vis clothing, right? So you see the guy over here just wandering around in
One up
traffic.
there, one over there.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys.
Yeah, there are people, just around everywhere, right?
Looks like he's on his phone.
The police officer in the front did not have his lights on.
What's that? Police officer in the
In
front
that
did not have his lights
call,
on?
The white car right there, if that's a police officer, it didn't have its lights on. But it
Yeah,
might
I don't
be
think that's a police
traffic.
officer. I think that's just traffic
Yeah.
moving freely
Yeah,
there.
sorry.
You got a broken power pole there.
Yeah, you sure do.
The engine's
The apparatus is parked.
I feel you on that.
Well, that's it, right? So now here's our blocking apparatus. What is it blocking exactly?
Driveway.
Yeah,
Driveway.
a driveway, right? So the apparatus isn't being
Keeping that
utilized
engine
well as a
safe, though.
blocker, right?
Keep the wires from hitting the ground.
All right.
Keep the wires from hitting the ground.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what we want to use our apparatus for. Help those
The
wires.
tow
stay up.
truck operator does not have a safety vest on.
Good job there. He responder with he doesn't have a safety vest on. He also has his back to his back. This guy has his back to traffic, eh?
Yes,
And
It's
we've
not
also
coned
got
off.
beautiful, nicely done. Was that
Thank
Arlene?
you. Yes, good job.
Not coned off. Look at that. We just made our scene safer. Now we've got the cones up. We've got the, get those guys in their high vis gear and use that as that apparatus as a blocker, right? This cop
And
car
there's
is
still
gonna be-
nobody directing traffic.
And there's no one directing traffic. Having someone out there would be good too, for sure.
And the apparatus should not be parked under power lines.
Yeah, I think we've hit the apparatus in terms of the fact that, we've hit the fact that it should be used as a blocker and not parked where it's parked, for sure.
Those are only telephone lines. Those are not hydro lines.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, folks, what's wrong with this one?
Same thing. No gas,
Freelancing.
no cones.
Well, we don't know it's freelancing. We don't know it's freelancing unless we know it's in the,
Parked in the wrong lane, or I mean, started in the wrong.
Well, there's 3 trucks facing each different way. How is that not freelancing?
Well,
That's
they could have been
kinda
told to
hard.
do that. Freelancing is specifically doing something you're not told to do. Now, these very well could have been told to park them the wrong direction, and that's fine the way that they're parked, actually. For me, it looks like, they're in a proper fend off position, right? They're basically upstream and downstream coming at it will glance off, and they're being used effectively to protect the scene. So I think those apparatus are nicely placed. But let's talk about, the usual, right? We had no signs and no signage coming up.
No cones.
No cones. Now we do.
No PPE.
You close the lane down, so you've got to control traffic.
Yeah, well, we've got no PPE.
There's a car
Again,
coming
if we close
off.
this
the
lane down, yeah,
distance,
exactly right. So whoever said that, we close the lane down, we're gonna need to have somebody here control traffic because we need alternating
exactly,
traffic, right?
No,
The one that
yeah,
we had
somebody-
before that. All right, guys, 1 second. So the one we had before that, it had a 4-lane highway. So there was a lane of traffic that could be used. There was no need to have somebody directing traffic there. As long as we increase the distances and the length of our taper, we increase the length of our advanced warning area, and we increase the length of our buffer zone. Again, we can leave that without somebody because they can figure out themselves how to get around it. In a situation like this, you're right. We do need to have a traffic control person.
Yeah.
All right, Ken and Becky, I see your hand up. Do you have a question?
How did we do
Hang on,
that?
hang on. Yeah, I had my little say. So
So you had your say. Excellent. All right, we'll
forgot
move
about
on
my
then.
hand.
I don't even know how we did that. How did you do
I
that?
did, I did.
All right, folks, what's wrong with this with this picture?
He's
Two-
back
close.
behind the cones instead of being up front.
Sorry?
He's
Was that
back
Keith?
behind his cones instead of being up in front. Opposed to
Not a big
being
enough
in
taper.
front. Yes, thank
Who
you.
said taper? Was that Clancy?
Yeah.
Good job, Clancy.
Thank
That's
you,
great.
Clancy.
His truck is also in the oncoming traffic too.
Using your, again,
If
the way
his
that
truck
he's
is
got his
in
apparatus
oncoming
positioned,
traffic
I've
and you
got
have
no
the
problem
cones,
with
you
it.
should be fine.
You know what's another problem with that is his wheels are turned the wrong
Vehicle.
direction. If the truck comes down the hill, it's going to run him over and come back out into traffic. His wheels are turned the wrong direction and not chalked as well.
Good call.
And he's not wearing a helmet.
And he's not wearing a helmet.
It
Absolutely.
Son of a
also
gun.
seems as though he doesn't have like a good lane of exit. Like he doesn't really.
I think he's got a pretty good lane of exit. I'd just scurry off into the bushes there if I had to. Personally, that's where I'd go. But pretty straightforward on this one. This is not an appropriate transition length. All right. Everything else to me looks okay, right? Other than, yeah, he should be wearing a helmet. Absolutely. He's got his high vis vest on. Good for him. Not moving his sign around or anything. The way that he's positioned the apparatus, okay, we can look at it and say the vehicle, if it were to start rolling, would come down. But honestly, this is also the way that I would say you want them, the wheels facing, in case it gets rammed from behind, it's not being pushed into the incident scene, right?
Yeah, but wouldn't he? Sure.
Not going. I know what you're going to say in terms of the way that it's going to travel if the brakes release, and that's why we set our parking brake and our chocks every time we do park the apparatus for traffic control like this. Okay.
The only reason I say that is because if he's hit from behind, wouldn't he go into oncoming traffic opposed to being turned the other way, going to the ditch?
I'd rather him hit another car coming at it than hit a person. The car has a much better chance of surviving that accident. The people inside that car have a much better chance of surviving that accident than an emergency responder operating on the scene.
Yes, sir.
All right. Again, cars can get fixed. People can't, right? We're going to talk a little bit now about the downgrading and the termination of the emergency scene. All right. Because again, this is one of the most dangerous periods of time we have. Anytime we're setting up, anytime we're demobilizing and taking stuff down, that is our highest level of threat, right? We want to try and keep in mind that we want to release apparatus and resources as soon as we possibly can, right? We want to basically try to move off of any traveled lane as soon as we can. We want to stop or slow traffic as we're doing this. And we want to basically take up the termination and the transition areas like at the very last bit, right? So when a scene is finished, we'll go through some steps here, all right? So number one, we're going to move that apparatus off the traveled portion of the road. We want to make give it a clear lane where possible, so that the traffic, once we've removed all of our other stuff, they can start going and using that lane, right? Step two is if necessary, we want to completely stop or slow the traffic while we're picking up the channeling devices, right? We want to stop them. That is going to keep us the safest if we can, right? If we keep them moving, we want to make sure that we're slowing everybody down going past us, for sure, right? Step three, using a fire department vehicle to protect the emergency workers. We're going to pick up the emergency scene signs last, right? That's the last thing we're going to do. All right. Sometimes we're going to find that traffic control is going to be taken over by another agency. All right. So we're demobilizing, but traffic control is continuing on. Right. In that case, the first thing we're going to want to do is basically give the relieving agency time to set up their own traffic warning devices and equipment. The next step is going to be, after they're set up and they're ready to take over, basically use their new new traffic control person protection to pick up the fire department equipment and leave the scene. Basically, we want to leave their stuff there. We'll pick up our stuff and we'll get going. So give them time, set up their stuff. As soon as they're set up, we can start taking our stuff down. Again, hopefully we want them communicate with the new team coming in, let them know you'd like them stopped or slowed as you're doing this. Keep you guys safe as well, right? So we want to remove the traffic control zone, again, working from the upstream, from the termination area to the advanced warning area. Okay, that's the last place we're going to do is the advanced warning area. All right, we want to maintain that advanced warning area as long as the traffic queue remains. Keep that sign up, slow everybody down. As long as there's a lineup of traffic, leave the signs there, okay? It gives people an idea of what they're coming up to. So when we're retrieving any warning devices, we're always going to be working in pairs. We want to maintain that eye contact like we talked about many times with the oncoming traffic at all times, right? We want to, when we're retrieving cones, we want to start from the farthest from the shoulder and working towards the edge of the road. Anytime we work the other way, it's going to leave us in the middle of the road with no warning to motorists, right? So always start at the shoulder and work our way to the edge of the road. Backing the apparatus up as the cones are retrieved can also help provide an added measure of safety. So as we're taking them up, we're keeping the apparatus with us and keeping it as a blocker as well. We want to keep our warning lights on the apparatus as long as basically we want to keep those lights going. It's going to help them alert traffic that we're still operating on the roadway. Fire department should also maintain a presence to protect emergency personnel and any other citizens exposed to traffic hazards. We need to remain on scene until we're released by either another agency or the scene is over, right? But we want to release that unnecessary equipment and personnel as soon as possible. Again, I can't stress it enough. You guys, we're targets. We head out there, we're going to try and keep others safe. We're trying to keep motorists safe. But every time you're out there, we are just another thing that another car can hit. All right. And the more personnel you have out there, the more targets there are. The more, apparatus, don't care. Make it a target. I'd rather that be the target. But realize, if we don't need, you got 20 people show up to a call and you need traffic control and you don't need all 20 of them, send a bunch home, right? We don't, if they're not necessary, their apparatus isn't necessary out there to do the job, get them off the highway. It's less people that could potentially get injured. All right, folks, that's the end of the emergency scene traffic control course. I appreciate you guys, taking two Tuesdays with me. I know it's a long course and I know it's difficult in this format sometimes, but this is a very important course to what we do. I'm telling you, it's very near and dear to my heart. I think I've impressed that upon you over the two nights that we've done this. It's a place, it's something that keeps me up at night going out on the highway. It's something that, that I think about a lot, and you need to consider it, remember, it is a high risk environment. We are responsible for not only our own safety, but you're responsible for each other's safety and the safety of everybody on that scene as well. So it's a big job. Now I think you have a bit of the knowledge and experience to help you do the job. There is a practical component as well where you can we'd like you to go and set up a traffic control area, maybe either doing it on a tabletop or doing it out, with your actual cones and traffic control devices. But certainly familiarize yourself with what you have at your department. Have those talks with your ranking officer, somebody there, if you feel that maybe some more is required, and take care of each other when you're out on the highway. I'm going to stop the recording now, and if there are any further questions, I will take them.